So I'm bringing out a guy who I really enjoy and who I think will be a tremendous interviewer, Dick Costolo. All right, Dick.
Thank you.
I hope you can do this.
Don't worry, I got it.
This is your test for Recode, because you don't have a job.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know this, but Walt also walked me down the aisle. And I remember tearing up because it was my wedding day, and Walt looked at me and he was like, "Don't be a pussy." And I was like, "Oh my God, Walt Mossberg is calling me a pussy on my wedding day." And then I woke up and here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time on the Recode stage, Walt Mossberg. You gotta sit in that one.
I gotta sit in this one? Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's go. All right, I want to get right to it, okay?
Yeah.
We do.
I love you too.
First of all,
Not so much him.
Before I forget, what's a good cell number we can all use for you going forward? All right, you've sat in this chair any number of times, and there have been people sitting in the chair you're sitting in now, including me. You can even use me as an example here if you want.
It's like payback.
Yeah, this is like payback. And hundreds of times you've sat here while someone's sitting there, and I want you to tell us all about one time or more times that someone was just sitting in that chair saying something, and you thought to yourself, I haven't been listening to a word this person was saying for the last 4 minutes. And then you went, oh, that's bullshit.
It's that easy. And that's, no, I listen to the people who do the interviews. Sometimes I think that's bullshit, but I've been listening. I've been listening.
All right, but people are coming to your office in DC.
Yep.
In Ken Auletta's piece in the New Yorker in 2007, he talked about the pilgrimages to your office in DC.
Right.
And as we saw in the video, Steve brought the first iPhone to you. The first.
Actually, that was in Cupertino where I saw it, but.
All right, let's not mince words. Listen, let's pretend I'm asking the questions and you're answering the questions.
All right.
You see the first iPhone.
Yeah.
You see the first iPad. Come on, you had to have had some disagreements and.
Oh, with Steve?
Yeah. Come on, let's hear a couple about. Let's hear about.
Okay.
A couple of those.
So. Well, okay. Disagreement stories. So I had a good relationship with Steve. What people I don't think understand is that because I was a reviewer and not a reporter, a lot of these CEOs, from small companies, big companies, whatever, would actually open up to me and show me stuff that was not released and just converse about the industry in general, knowing I wasn't going to go and post something the next day. And so what people don't understand is I spent about as much time talking to Bill Gates as I did Steve, which is one reason when we did the joint interview, I was able to, they both were willing to do it. And Steve, they had different styles. So there was a moment just before Steve came back to Apple when Apple was about to sell itself to Sun. You younger people can look this up. Apple was about 60 days or 90 days from bankruptcy or something.
Michael Dell famously said they should just dividend out the cash.
Right, they should just close shop and return whatever they had. And so the editor of the journal said, because all I did was write the columns. I didn't write anything else. He said, I want you to write a special piece about what Apple has meant because we think Apple's going away. And so I wrote sort of an obit for Apple. And in that piece, I said Bill Gates had outfoxed Steve Jobs. Not on the tech. I said Steve was the guy who took the bolder leaps on tech, but Bill was the guy who was the much smarter business guy. And my phone rings, and it's Bill. And he was reading the journal in print in those days. So this must have been
1906.
Yeah, but it must It must have been a half an hour after the paper hit his doorstep in, Medina, or wherever he lived, and at the time. And he goes, I'm sick, and he said, I'm just a business guy? Is that what that is? I'm sick and tired of Steve being the tech genius and me being the business guy. And I said, Bill, it's an obit of your Apple. It's an obit of Apple. And by the way, what I wrote, if you want I read it back to him. I said, Bill Gates, probably the most important, biggest business figure since World War II. Right. I said, so you just got me, I just wrote in the Wall Street friggin' Journal that you're the most important business figure since World War II, and you're calling to complain? Do I understand this correctly? So that was Bill's ad. Bill was very direct. Steve, it was different. I'd write a piece. Yeah. Sometimes not often, but sometimes it would be a bad piece for them, like Mobile Me, famously, I trashed, and he actually called a meeting, the entire Mobile Me team, and
he killed 2 of them, I think.
Point out, killed 2 of them. But I would.
There are many ways to be successful.
Many. I think it was 3. I think you're,
okay.
Look that up again. Yeah. I had written a review where I actually recommended that people buy whatever it was. Yeah. I don't even remember what it was. It was maybe an iPad. I don't remember what it was. But he did this more than once. I always, there are very few perfect products. I ran across a few that had, flaws that were virtually so small they were not worth mentioning, but that was rare. So I had a section that said drawbacks or downsides or something, and I talked about the flaws in this thing that they needed to fix. But basically I was recommending it. This was Steve Jobs' method. He would call, my assistant would say to Steve Jobs, I would pick up the phone, he'd say, Walt, I'm not calling to complain about your column. And then he would complain about my column. He would say, in that drawback section, I think you're really unfair to us about this point, and think you're unfair to us about that point. I'd stop and I'd say, how about the second paragraph where I say people should buy the goddamn thing? What's your problem? But that was his style. Yeah. I'm not calling to complain, man. Okay, it's going to be one of those.
Plus, I'm a better business person than Bill Gates. Yeah.
No, he never said that.
In your pitch for the personal technology column to Pearlstein, you wrote, if the column works as I envision, this column could be the champion of the individual customer, the person who the industry calls the end user. In your last column for Recode, you contrasted today's much easier to use hardware and software with the tech you first wrote about. Success? What worked as you envisioned and what didn't?
So I'm not taking credit for this, by the way, but I just think
trying to give you the credit.
The industry got the memo. I was one of the people sending the memo. There were other people sending the memo. Yeah. They got the memo that it had to be something people could use. And the example I used in the last column, and I said that you could hand an iPad, which was vastly more powerful than the computers I was criticizing in 1991. You could hand an iPad to a 6-year-old and they would figure it out instantly. And I got several people writing me saying, 6-year-olds are over iPads. You can hand it to a 4-year-old and they know how to use it. So I think the industry got on the established products, on the PCs, and on the smartphones, and on the tablets, and if we're talking about software, things like Google Docs, things like, Twitter and Facebook are making themselves harder to use every day.
You're welcome.
Sorry to say. Yeah, thanks. How about editing tweets? Huh?
No, I'm asking the questions. You keep trying to flip it around. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Anyway, everybody got the memo to make it simpler.
Right here, you and me.
Everybody got the memo to make it simpler. Almost everybody. But the other thing I said in that last column is, the newer the technology, the more it resembles what I was writing about, which was relatively new in 1991. So I pointed out, the average person is not going to hook up the Oculus Rift to the computer you have to hook it up to, and they're not going to wear those goggles. Yes, some people will, but not the mass market of people.
Right.
AR, which I think is actually going to be a bigger deal, has to be this. It has to be just pretty much look like this and be this shape and weight and size. So the newer it is, the closer it is to the engineers, and it's not, and the first line of my first column still applies to that.
Yeah.
The other stuff, the day-to-day stuff, has gotten much better.
Okay, I want to go back to storytelling time.
Yeah.
The Microsoft people come to you. He knows what's coming, and they show you the Zune.
Yeah.
What happens? Like, I have multiple questions.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, they showed me
Let's
the Zune.
just start like from that.
Yeah, that's a good.
And we'll go from
cue.
there.
So they showed me the Zune. It's gorgeous. It's white and stainless steel.
I'm sorry, I said the Zune. Oh, okay, go ahead.
And I say to them, "This will never sell. Make it brown." That was my advice. Make it brown. And I can't believe Bill Gates was in that video because, no, that began the period when, and I think they're coming out of that period, but that began the period when they started everything 3 years late and 300% worse than Apple was doing.
And what are those conversations like? I mean, come on, Bill is in the room and he's
Well,
pitching
Bill
you the
once
Zoom.
said to me,
Yeah.
after a period of this, he said to me, "Why don't you just headline every one of your columns by a Mac? Why don't they just set that in type and put it in there?" Jesus, Walt. And either he had fantastic staff prep or a photographic memory. Because the first time I met him, I said, I'm going to be reviewing like a movie reviewer your stuff, and I'm going to be critical. Oh, his first words to me were, where did you come from? Because it's like somebody said in that video, I was an established reporter.
Yeah.
I was all about journalism. I'd been investigated by the FBI for some stuff I did when I covered the Pentagon.
We're going to get to that next.
I'd been criticized from the press room lectern in the White House by somebody other than Sean Spicer, a genuine press secretary. And I wasn't going to be afraid of Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And so he said, "Where did you come from?" Because he knew every tech reporter. And they all came out of a lot of them came out of the industry. Not all of them, but a lot of them did. And I was like a foreign thing in that community. But so I said to Bill, "I'm going to be criticizing and reviewing your stuff, but I want you to tell me where you think I've gone wrong." Because I did. I invited all these people to tell me that. Maybe I skipped you. I don't remember. But so I would meet with him.
I like the way you referred to me there as if I was sort of a side character in the play.
No, you're on the level.
Maybe I skipped you. What's your name again?
I'm
Phil?
putting you on the level of Bill.
Okay. All right.
And Steve,
fair enough.
you're on that
Good.
level.
All right.
Dick.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Trying to
that was
butter
very
up.
kind of you.
Trying to
Good.
butter up the interview.
I'm going to move to question number 6 then.
Yeah, no. And every time I would meet with Bill, he would go through every column I'd written,
Yeah.
whether it was about Microsoft or somebody else, and he would give me a critique. Every interview started with him saying, you were pretty right on that column. You were way off on this one. What does that mean? Why did you say that? And you were terrible to us.
And what are the things that you think, looking back, what are the 2 things you think, I really got that? Because you're seeing these things before anyone's seen them.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to see it, and then you can go look at the 4 reviews that are out there and say, oh, that's true, that's not. You're seeing these things before anyone.
I made it a practice
well, I'm
to
saying,
never reread
you're
anybody.
seeing these things before anyone has seen them.
Yeah.
What's something you feel like, man, I really got that right? And what's one that, wow, I was wrong about that?
Well, I was really right about the Q cat. People know what the Q cat was? Do you know what it was?
Of course.
I trashed that one. I feel like I was really right about the MacBook Air, which I still think was the best laptop ever made. I was right about Windows 95, which I thought was really good. I was right about Slingbox, I think. And then there were, it depends what you mean by right. I mean, if you mean, did I trash something and it still sold? Oh, that happened all the time, but that happens to movie reviewers too. This is a terrible movie, but the public still goes. Right. I didn't care. I didn't never ever judge my work by whether, by the market, by whether it sold. But look, I made mistakes. Actually, on some products, I wrote a very negative review. They went and revised the product, and then I came back and re-reviewed it like 9 months later and gave it a good review. I did that a few times.
All right, only because several people have said, and I don't know whether they're having me on or not, you have to ask Walt the Bill Gates Taco Bell story. I'm now asking,
right.
ask Walt the Bill Gates Taco Bell story. This better be good, by the way. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I've...
So Bill Gates was very generous with me when he was running Microsoft, and actually Steve Ballmer did the same thing. I did an annual, like what I called an immersion visit to Microsoft. I spent 2 or 3 days. I saw lots of product managers and I saw some engineers, and that's really what I enjoyed doing. I saw future products, I did all that. A PR person would sit in the meeting and take notes. And I inquired about this, and I was told these memos went to a number of people, including Bill, who was always my last interview, or mostly my last interview. And he was getting these memos about how these meetings were going about these different products. So then I would sit down with him. One year, it was decided, or I was told, Bill would like to take you to dinner and do the interview there. So I go to his office, and you know, those of you who are from Microsoft or been to Microsoft know, even back in, this must have been 10, 12 years ago, but they have a lot of buildings. I parked in one building, but by the time I got to his office, I was like, I don't know, half a mile away from my car. But I went, it was like 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and I went into his office, and we got into a giant discussion. Some of it was arguing. Bill and I had hand-waving arguments. He'd stand up and wave his arms, and I'd wave my arms back at him, and we, you know, and other times.
It was all very
no, but
theatrical.
It's hard to, it was theatrical, and there was a little anger in there, but just a little. But I learned a lot from him. I don't know if he learned anything from me, but we had good, meaty discussions. Well, he forgot to take me to dinner, and I forgot that he was supposed to take me to dinner. And the phone rings, and it's Melinda. It's 10 o'clock. We're still in his office. There's no one else in the building. Phone rings, it's Melinda. And I can hear only one side of the conversation, but it's like, oh, shit, I forgot to take him to dinner. Oh. He puts his hand over the mouth. He says, Melinda's on the phone. She says, I'm an idiot because I forgot to take you to dinner. Are you mad? And I said, no, I don't. Tell her I'm fine. I've enjoyed the discussion. It's all fine. So he says, I'll be home soon. This is the richest man in the world.
Yeah.
I'll be home
this is
soon,
good.
right?
I'm liking this because this is
And he hangs up
helping me.
the phone, and he says, I'll drive you to your car, and I got to get home. But he says, you know, I am going to go eat before I go home, but I'm going to go to the takeout window at Taco Bell.
Of course.
He says, do you want to come with me?
Yeah.
Then I can tell her,
Yeah.
I took you to dinner. And I say, you know, we've been talking for about 3.5 hours, and I'm not so crazy about the Taco Bell takeout window at night when there's like the last leavings of the stuff.
That's when most of the police reports are filed.
Exactly. So I say, you know, thanks, but if you'll take me to my car, I'll just get room service back at the hotel. Okay. So we walk out of his office, and we're walking toward the elevator, and he goes, oh, I'll be right back. I've got to go back to the office. I said, what's the matter? He says, I don't have any money on me. I mean, his net worth was, I don't know, 100 million or, you know, a billion or some huge amount of money.
Yeah.
I said, well, what do you need? 10? I'll give you $10. He goes, no. So he goes back in his office, and he emerges again with this $10
The Nacho
bill.
Bel Grande is like $4.95. You could get him for like $6.
Well, he tips.
Yeah, well.
He tips.
Of course.
He's a good guy.
Of course.
He's the world's, look, he is literally the world's
I get it.
biggest philanthropist. So that's where it started, with tipping the Taco Bell guy. So, but he comes triumphantly out of his office with a $10 bill. And he drove me to my car, and I imagine he went to Taco Bell. And the coda to the story is the next. I knew Melinda from when she was a product manager. Before she got married to him, you got to watch the clock there.
I'm all good. It's good.
And-
Don't worry, I got that. You just answer the questions. I'm doing your role.
And
I can go over as long as I want.
and so I'm in a meeting with.
Senator Harris doesn't need to be anywhere.
No, yes, she does. Yes, she does. I'm in a meeting with with a group of people, including Melinda, and before the meeting starts, she pulls me into the hall and she says, "I'm so embarrassed that he didn't take you to dinner." And I said, "Don't worry about it." But that's the Taco Bell story.
All right.
Is that all right?
It's great. I'm glad I asked. All right.
I don't know who you're talking to, but I'm going to kill them.
I'm talking to you. Oh, who I was talking to backstage?
Yeah.
Again, a number of interviews.
I'm thinking of
I'm
writing
in the
a
middle
book.
of the question here.
Yeah, I
Come
know.
on, eyes right here. Focus. What's the matter with you?
Yes, Dick.
Thank you. All these people have come through this stage. People who are first-time CEOs, and then they've grown in the role, and they've come back years and years later. Talk about a couple of people who you've seen out here, maybe 5 years later, 6 years later, 8 years later, and people that have surprised you in the way they've changed and the way they've adjusted to the role or the magnitude of the opportunity that they've had.
Well, I was going to say Yahoo, but they kept changing, so that wouldn't be a good one. The first time Mark Zuckerberg came, he insisted on coming with Cheryl. I think I knew him, Karen knew him. I don't know why, but he had heard that it might be a tough interview. I don't know where that comes from.
I have no idea.
And but he insisted on coming with Cheryl.
Probably the hand waving.
And then after that, he came on his own. So that's an example of, I don't know, obviously he's grown in many ways, and being on this stage isn't probably his highest priority, but, he felt more confident to come. I'm having a hard time coming up with other examples. There are some.
In your last column, you talked about kind of going through a lull right now in consumer technology, but the future of ambient computing. And you also left a couple of sort of, this can be our last question. We'll give you a lot of room to answer it here. You also left a couple warnings about the importance of privacy in the world of ambient computing. And where data is stored and how it's stored and how companies think about it. If you could sort of take this moment, this sort of benchmark moment in your career to address the industry or any group of people in this industry and give them a request or a warning or a watch out for this, what would it be?
I would say, I think the industry is way too casual about privacy. Mm-hmm. I think, and it's tied up with ad-based businesses primarily. Look, my salary's been paid by advertising. Jim Bankoff is sitting out there, who I work for, and he runs an ad-based business, and that's what he pays me my huge salary from, and Kara's huge salary. And all the other staff's huge. Everybody makes a huge salary.
Sure.
And so I'm not against ads, but I am against the...
You are against Jim Bankoff. No.
No, I'm not against Jim Bankoff. I love Jim Bankoff.
Please.
Decorum. I think the ad tech industry operates in darkness. You don't know what's being loaded onto your web page unless you have a lot of technical skill, and you can go look at all the things that have been loaded on. Web pages load slowly. On mobile. Now, people have worked on that. They're working on it. We get a report, I think it's every month or every few weeks at Fox Media about how all our sites' response time on mobile has improved. But the ad tech industry not only screws up the web, and the ads are lousy. The deal you do is, all right, I'll let you track me and invade my privacy, but you're going to give me targeted ads that are so much more relevant to me. And with the exception of Google search, where they know the context pretty perfectly because you've typed in a search term, I find I don't get any value back for the stealing of my privacy. I think it should be opt-in. And in the last column, and I know a lot of you probably don't agree with me, he's regulating tech. He's regulating. Well, you know what? Tech is a big industry. I've lived in Washington 40 some odd years. You walk down the street, there's the oil and gas industry lobbying building. There's the broadcasters. There's the AFL-CIO. There's
the Elon Musk statue.
The Elon Musk. No. But the car manufacturers, everybody has a lobby, and of course the tech companies have a lobby. And these people are all regulated in one way or another, not because the government is, I mean, the government does a lot of dumb things, but the original idea behind regulating these industries was to protect the consumer. And I'm sorry, but this hiding in the shadows, not telling you what's going on, no opt-in, there's an opt-out, but it's super complicated and often can't be found, is just to me, something that's going to eventually fail and turn people away. And I want ads to succeed. I don't want to see a 30-second pre-roll ad on a 14-second sports video. That's just stupid greed. And somebody's got to deal with it. Now, that one I'm not saying the government should regulate away, but the hiding in the shadows, the invading your privacy, somebody's got to get control over that. And then there's the security issue, which I have sympathy in some cases for companies that have tried to do security, and you know, it's an arms race with Russia and other kinds of hackers. But I don't have sympathy for other companies that pay virtually no attention to it. And there's a mix, there's a range. So what I said in that column was we in the United States have to stop dancing around the privacy and security issues, and we can't, you know, let the existing agency structures handle it, because they obviously, we know from the whole net neutrality battle that they're going to constantly shift it between titles of some law that was passed a long time ago. We need law. We need an actual law that says, hey, we're living in the internet era, we're living in the cloud era, we're living in, it's tech time, and finally the Congress ought to pass a law that addresses this, where everybody gets their say, and of course the corporate lobbyists will have more influence than consumers, but at least we'll get a law on privacy, a law on security, maybe some kind of a new commission that will take case by case, and the thing will evolve. So that's what I believe.
Well, it's a real pleasure. Everybody, Walt Mossberg.
Thank you, Dick.